Today we delve into Genshin's most disturbing horror story, an internet creepypasta that may be too disturbing for some of my younger viewers. Faceless Ayato, a Genshin rumor that's captivated the attention of many. However, very few people are aware of the full story behind it. And let me tell you, I was not prepared for what I found out. It's a story that goes far deeper than what it appears on the surface. It involves some murder, suicide, betrayal, drugs, as well as human testing. Yeah, something you wouldn't expect in a Genshin video. This video is most likely going to get demonetized, so if you want to help out the channel, feel free to press the subscribe button. If you were to look up Faceless Ayato, you will be greeted with many different airy images of a very disturbing looking Ayato. The one common denominator they all share is the lack of a face. No skin, no mouth, no nose, just deep set purple eyes glaring into your soul. The story of Faceless Ayato was all in Russian, and I had to translate a lot of the original videos and images, as well as cross-reference multiple translations. I tried my best to keep the story as concise and as close to the original telling as possible. There are a lot of tellings of the story, but this is the most original one I could provide for you. The story begins with a Russian Genshin player who was unable to download the game from the official site. That's why he decided to download the game from a third-party website. I believe he torrented the game, and surprisingly, it worked just like normal. No issues at all, and he continued to play Genshin like he normally would, which was to be expected, until he decided to record a video, which in that moment he noticed something odd in the background, a figure standing on top of the statue in the dead of night. He made sure he was playing in single player, no other players could join his world, and it looked just like another Genshin character, Ayato. Then they approached the figure to confirm their suspicions. There was only two problems with this. Firstly, Ayato should never be there. Ayato resides all the way across the ocean in Inazuma. Secondly, the Genshin player never actually unlocked Ayato, so there should be no reason for Ayato to be in their world at all. When they climbed to the top of the statue to confirm their suspicions, they indeed saw Ayato. Just one problem. His face was gone, and in its place, just two eyes staring back at them. After this happened, the player immediately tried to remove the game files and uninstall the game. But that was the problem. They couldn't. They kept receiving an error saying file cannot be removed. They booted up the game, this time noticing more changes, just a bit more subtle. The character descriptions seem to have changed. These descriptions kind of give us the backstory in the situation. Something was definitely wrong upon closer inspection. We can kind of unveil a story of why Ayato was wandering the lands of Teyvat, forever unable to rest. But before we dive further into the lore that was changed, the player would find Faceless Ayato only a few times at very specific locations. The second time they encountered Ayato was near a cliffside in Mondstadt. The third and final time was at a cemetery, and Ayato seems to only appear at the dead of night wandering by himself. So let's unravel the story found through the character description as well as the items placed in the player's inventory. Of course, none of which were found in the original Genshin game files. One of the most useful character description is Ayaka's, Ayato's younger sister. In her altered character story, we can see her mourning the loss of her older brother. She couldn't believe that her older brother has died.
My brother! Where did you go? No, anything but not this. I am gonna take revenge when I find who's responsible.
Next up we have Itto. Itto's character description is a lot more confusing and the translation was a lot more difficult to get. So I'm gonna stick with the common denominator found amongst various translations. His description states he had the most important thing taken away from him. He ends the description saying,
I won't forgive this. Die, die, die.
He also mentions about a suicide, but the translation is pretty bad. In the player's inventory, they then find a letter detailing an events of suicide, so probably the one that Itto was rambling about earlier. The letter describes the death of an individual. During the night this happened, cries could be heard at the dead of night. The victim seemed to have jumped from a high location, making it seem like a suicide. A few people were suspected of being guilty, such as a close friend of the victim, but nothing could be confirmed and the case was closed soon after. Another vital piece of evidence that kind of ties everything together was a patient logbook. Now, this was the part where things get weird, and you'll see why. The patient logbook was called Patient Report 781, describing the treatment of a little boy with severe depression. The patient was prescribed a new variant of a very powerful antidepressant. The doctors used this as an opportunity to trial out the new drug. The document read, Behavior Report for patient 781. No noticeable side effects. The new medicine seems to be effective. Added more load to the brain to test the new special brain cells. Day 7 added more load to the brain to test the new brain cells added to the patient via surgery. Day 7 to 13, terrible. The patient has fainted just before getting to the operating table. We are struggling to operate. When he woke up, he started to scream loud and shout what seems to be nonsensical rambles. Surgeons attempted to remove the new implanted brain cells without any success. They seem to be causing the manic episode. In the patient's insane rants, he seems to mention a person by name. Seems to say they are a threat to the universe, a threat to the world, and it's his job to get rid of him. The name we believe the patient was shouting was Ayato. The rambles were dismissed as psychosis episodes or just manic hallucinations. During one of the patient's rants, he spoke about being commanded by an omnipotent figure, going by the name of Baul. Doctors presume this is a result of the new brain cells they tested when they implanted it into the patient, reacting very negatively alongside the new strong medication. Doctors were unable to reverse the surgery. The doctors then decided to remove the patient of the new medication. Luckily, the patient's behavior reverted to normal, and the memory of the manic episode slowly faded. Doctors noted the patient seemed to have vague memories of the event that did seem to disappear with time. However, the patient seems to remember the name of Baul, and he mentioned wanting to speak to her again. Eventually, with time, the patient was dispatched once his behavior returned to normal. The final piece of altered game files is a notebook from Ito, which ties his story together. He describes the traumatic events that took place as a child when he went to a hospital. He admits to lying to doctors about withholding information. He comments how the nurses took away his pills, but he needed them. He finally writes about how he made sure to steal the pills before being released from the hospital in order to finish his mission.